How did it start? Osama actually said it was my brainchild. Yes, it was. It's just been born, and the way I'm going to raise it up, it's not going to be just myself and my wife. As it says, normally there is a saying, it takes a village to raise a kid, and that's how it's going to be raised up. So we came up with a plan, and you probably haven't seen that many logos in any program. Normally is the way how much you're going to pay us, what you're going to give us back. We are on that level, and we are on this level. We didn't care about that. And with the true entrepreneurial spirit, normally I say, the first thing you get stuck at is where the money is going to come from. And that's most of you people, like 99% of the people I've interacted with, especially within Pakistan, they say where the money is going to come from. And this is the point you have in your mind. Am I right? That's the problem we have. It's like asking, and other day I was like on FM 100 as well, and I was giving this example, that there was a time जब हमारी माएँ जब हम पैदा होते थे तो हमारे माँ बाप को उस वक्त फिक्र हो जाती थी कि इसकी शादी कहाँ करनी है, बल्कि दादा दादियाँ नानियाँ भी पूछती थी कि इसकी शादी कहाँ करोगे. For God's sake, he's just been born. So you're asking a wrong question at the wrong time, at the wrong place. So ask yourself first. There are like 10 steps. Money is the 9th step. Have you done your 8 steps? Ask yourself. I've been dealing for some time, like for the last 3-4 years, I've been involved in the entrepreneurship, interacting heavily with the students in NAST and ICRA, and whenever I come here, I deliver a lecture there, and it helped me a lot in order to understand what you guys think, what's in your mind. I'll just give you an example, that once you actually involve a mentor in your life, somebody who has been through, like what you have heard just now, I mean, especially Siraj Wahasab was amazing. He shared every single thing, and that's why we wanted to emphasize on this particular point, that how difficult or how easy is to become an entrepreneur in Pakistan. So you cannot bring a Silicon Valley model, put it there, and think that it's going to bring out a magic Jenny out of it. That you're going to change the whole Pakistan because it's entrepreneurship, fine, we have started a lot of startups and they are going through the roof, and it's not going to happen. You tried that in last year, the year before, the year before. How many startups you have created? It hasn't brought any sizable change. Let me get to the point, what was the inspiration? The inspiration was that time and other we get to this point that people like ourselves, especially the entrepreneurs, get to this point that they go through the middle life crisis. I don't know you want to call it middle life crisis or whatever, but you are at this point that you have everything. And you probably would have heard that Imran Khan saying so many times, "Mere paas to sab kuch hai, mujhe kis cheez ki kya zarurat hai?" And that's true to an extent. Because we have the house, we have the kids, we have the wife, and we can have the multiple wives, but we don't go for it because it's hard to manage. But there are like other things to it. There's nothing we cannot have. I mean, I can drive any car in the world. I mean, literally, just like Ferrari or whatever, like, I would just pay for it $500 or £500, and for a day I can drive it. So there's nothing in this world which you cannot have. So you get to this point that, okay, what shall we do now? And you will probably, inshallah, I pray that you get to this point at some point in time in your life. And that is the turning point. But this is late. This is too late. Because if it would have happened when I was 20, or like 18 when I launched my first startup, and it was, by the way, in Pakistan, and the second one was in London on Oxford Street. But if I knew that what I know now, it would have brought a tremendous change in the world. So that's the most important thing, that you should have a person as a mentor, as a guide, who you're interacting with on a daily basis. Like Wahasab shared those very important factors which he has gone through, which put him in that particular situation where he could share that with you. If he had that knowledge beforehand at the time when he was launching it, it would have been different. So for me, it was giving back to Pakistan. How can I give back to Pakistan? How can I change Pakistan? Everybody wants to change Pakistan, but they are the part of the problem, as Farooq was saying the other day. They are not part of the solution, and it came up this morning as well. So in order to become a part of the solution, what you have to do, and to be very, very frank, most of the people don't know what to do. So I categorized it. And it's not just my theory, it's the world theory, like most of the business school professors in the world right now thinking about this and practically doing it. In fact, the Harvard MBA course or the curriculum has been revised because of this thought process. There was a time, like about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they used to think like the companies are the problem for the society because they create pollution, they create all this waste, water. It's not anymore, and I'll go into that. So first thing you can do in order to change the society or any problems you have is assume a responsibility. Go into the government, go into the public office, go into the politics. So you become a prime minister and then you solve problems. And that's the easiest way. You have a lot of time to waste. I actually did this flow chart, yes and no. I don't know how many people of you have actually seen that on the Facebook. Okay. So I thought like make it easy for people to understand what the JumpStart is. And that flow chart actually makes it easy for you to understand. So you have three choices. One is the politics, you go there and waste a lot of time and then spend all your life and then get to the point where may or may not you assume the responsibility and then you're going to be stuck with the bureaucratic crap and then still you won't be able to bring about a sizable change. Then it comes a philanthropic approach. So you launch AED and then all your life is spent for philanthropic work and at the same time, maybe like Imran Khan launch a hospital. But has it changed Pakistan? It hasn't. In any aspect, yes, we have a solution to the cancer. Yes, we have a solution to ambulance service. But has it changed Pakistan? Has every single one, as Mujtaba was saying, that it hasn't solved the problem of education in this country. So what can solve our problems? And its problems is everywhere. This is what it is. The Pakistan has problems. Here is a problem, that is a problem, cleaning problem, health and safety problem, no electricity. It's all problems. If I want to sum it up, that what's wrong with us, it's all problems. There's nothing else I can sum it up in. This is one word. That wherever I see is a problem. So how you solve these problems? And rather than giving my theory, I'm going to bring it a Harvard School professor, Michael Porter. It's about 14 minutes, and you'll understand how to solve a problem. Not through the government, not through the philanthropic approach, but through entrepreneurship. So for the next 15 minutes, you watch this.
I think we're all aware that the world today is full of problems. We've been hearing them today and yesterday and every day for decades. Serious problems, big problems, pressing problems, poor nutrition, access to water, climate change, deforestation, lack of skills, insecurity, not enough food, not enough health care, pollution. There's problem after problem. And I think what really separates this time from any time I can remember in my brief time on Earth is the awareness of these problems. We're all very aware. Why are we having so much trouble dealing with these problems? That's the question I've been struggling with. Coming from my very different perspective, I'm not a social problem guy. I'm a guy that works with business, helps business make money. God forbid. So why are we having so much problem with these social problems? And really, is there any role for business? And if so, what is that role? I think that in order to address that question, we have to step back and think about how we've understood and pondered both the problems and the solutions to these great social challenges that we face. Now, I think many have seen business as the problem, or at least one of the problems in many of the social challenges we face. Think of the fast food industry, the drug industry, the banking industry. This is a low point in the respect for business. Business is not seen as the solution. It's seen as the problem now for most people. And rightly so in many cases. There's a lot of bad actors out there that have done the wrong thing, that actually have made the problem worse. So this perspective is perhaps justified. How have we tended to see the solutions to these social problems, these many issues that we face in society? Well, we tend to see the solutions in terms of NGOs, in terms of government, in terms of philanthropy. Indeed, the kind of unique organizational entity of this age is this tremendous rise of NGOs and social organizations. This is a unique new organizational form that we've seen grown up. Enormous innovation, enormous energy, enormous talent now has been mobilized through this structure to try to deal with all of these challenges. And many of us here are deeply involved in that. I'm a business school professor, but I've actually founded, I think now 4 nonprofits. Whenever I got interested and became aware of a societal problem, that was what I did, form a nonprofit. That was the way we thought about how to deal with these issues. Even a business school professor has thought about it that way. But I think at this moment, we've been at this for quite a while. We've been aware of these problems for decades. We have decades of experience with our NGOs and with our government entities, and there's an awkward reality. The awkward reality is we're not making fast enough progress. We're not winning. These problems still seem very daunting and very intractable, and any solutions we're achieving are small solutions. We're making incremental progress. What's the fundamental problem we have in dealing with these social problems? If we cut all the complexity away, we have the problem of scale. We can't scale. We can make progress, we can show benefits, we can show results, we can make things better. We're helping, we're doing better, we're doing good. We can't scale. We can't make large-scale impact on these problems. Why is that? Because we don't have the resources. And that's really clear now. And that's clearer now than it's been for decades. There's simply not enough money to deal with any of these problems at scale using the current model. There's not enough tax revenue. There's not enough philanthropic donations to deal with these problems the way we're dealing with them now. We've got to confront that reality. And the scarcity of resources for dealing with these problems is only growing, certainly in the advanced world today, with all the fiscal problems we face. So if it's fundamentally a resource problem, where are the resources in society? How are those resources really created? The resources we're going to need to deal with all these societal challenges. Well, there, I think the answer is very clear. They're in business. Why all wealth is actually created by business. Business creates wealth when it meets needs at a profit. Created. It's meeting needs at a profit that leads to taxes and that leads to incomes, and that leads to charitable donations. That's where all the resources come from. Only business can actually create resources. Other institutions can utilize them to do important work, but only business can create them. And business creates them when it's able to meet a need at a profit. The resources are overwhelmingly generated by business. The question then is, how do we tap into this? How do we tap into this? Business generates those resources when it makes a profit. That profit is that small difference between the price and the cost it takes to produce whatever solution business has created to whatever problem they're trying to solve. But that profit is the magic. Why? Because that profit allows whatever solution we've created to be infinitely scalable. Because if we can make a profit, we can do it for 10, 100, a million, 100 million, a billion. The solution becomes self-sustaining. That's what business does when it makes a profit. Now, what does this all have to do with social problems? Well, one line of thinking is, well, let's take this profit and redeploy it into social problems. Business should give more. Business should be more responsible. And that's been the path that we've been on in business. But again, this path that we've been on is not getting us where we need to go. Now, I started out as a strategy professor, and I'm still a strategy professor. I'm proud of that. But I've also, over the years, worked more and more on social issues. Worked on healthcare, the environment, economic development, reducing poverty. And as I worked more and more in the social field, I started seeing something that had a profound impact on me and my whole life in a way. The conventional wisdom in economics and the view in business has historically been that actually there's a trade-off between social performance and economic performance. The conventional wisdom has been that business actually makes a profit by causing a social problem. Classic example is pollution. If business pollutes, it makes more money than if it tried to reduce that pollution. Reducing pollution is expensive, therefore businesses don't want to do it. It's profitable to have an unsafe working environment. It's too expensive to have a safe working environment. Therefore, business makes more money if they don't have a safe working environment. That's been the conventional wisdom. A lot of companies have fallen into that conventional wisdom. They resisted environmental improvement. They resisted workplace improvement. That thinking has led to, I think, much of the behavior that we have come to criticize in business, that I come to criticize in business. But the more deeply I got into all these social issues, one after another, and actually the more I tried to address them myself personally, in a few cases through nonprofits that I was involved with, the more I found actually that the reality is the opposite. Business does not profit from causing social problems, actually not in any fundamental sense. That's a very simplistic view. The deeper we get into these issues, the more we start to understand that actually business profits from solving social problems. That's where the real profit comes. Let's take pollution. We've learned today that actually reducing pollution and emissions is generating profit. Saves money, makes the business more productive and efficient. It doesn't waste resources. Having a safer working environment actually and avoiding accidents, it makes the business more profitable because it's a sign of good processes. Accidents are expensive and costly. issue by issue by issue, we start to learn that actually there's no trade-off between social progress and economic efficiency in any fundamental sense. Another issue is health. I mean, what we found is actually health of employees is something that business should treasure because that health allows those employees to be more productive and come to work and not be absent. The deeper work, the new thinking on the interface between business and social problems is actually showing that there's a fundamental, deep synergy, particularly if you're not thinking in the very short run. In the very short run, you can sometimes fool yourself into thinking that there's fundamentally opposing goals. But in the long run, ultimately, we're learning in field after field that this is simply not true. So how could we tap into the power of business to address the fundamental problems that we face? Imagine if we could do that. Because if we could scale. We could tap into this enormous resource pool and this organizational capacity. And guess what? That's happening now, finally. Partly because of people like you, who've raised these issues now for year after year and decade after decade. We see organizations like Dow Chemical leading the revolution away from trans fat and saturated fat with innovative new products. This is an example of Jane Irrigation. This is a company that's brought drip irrigation technology to thousands and millions of farmers, reducing substantially the use of water. We see companies like the Brazilian forestry company Fibreeza that's figured out how to avoid tearing down old growth forests and using eucalyptus and getting much more yield per hectare of pulp and making much more paper than you could make by cutting down those old trees. You see companies like Cisco that are training so far 4 million people in IT skills to actually, yes, be responsible, but help expand the opportunity to disseminate IT technology and grow the whole business. There's a fundamental opportunity for business today to impact and address these social problems, and this opportunity is the largest business opportunity we see in business. And the question is, how can we get business thinking to adapt this issue of shared value? This is what I call shared value. Addressing a social issue with a business model. That's shared value. Shared value is capitalism, but it's a higher kind of capitalism. It's capitalism as it was ultimately meant to be, meeting important needs, not incrementally competing for trivial differences in product attributes and market share. Shared value is when we can create social value and economic value simultaneously. It's finding those opportunities that will unleash the greatest possibility we have to actually address these social problems because we can scale. We can address shared value at multiple levels. It's real. It's happening. But in order to get this solution working, we have to now change how business sees itself. And this is thankfully underway. Businesses got trapped into the conventional wisdom that they shouldn't worry about social problems, that this was sort of something on the side, that somebody else was doing it. We're now seeing companies embrace this idea. But we also have to recognize business is not going to do this as effectively as if we have NGOs and government working in partnership with business. The new NGOs that are really moving the needle are the ones that have found these partnerships, that have found these ways to collaborate. The governments that are making the most progress are the governments that have found ways to enable shared value in business, rather than see government as the only player that has to, call the shots. And government has many ways in which it can impact the willingness and the ability of companies to compete in this way. I think if we can get business seeing itself differently, and if we can get others seeing business differently, we can change the world. I know it. I'm seeing it. I'm feeling it. Young people, I think, my Harvard Business School students are getting it. If we can break down this sort of divide, this unease, this tension, this sense that we're not fundamentally collaborating here in driving these social problems, we can break this down, we finally, I think, can have solutions. Thank you.
My mic is on? Okay. Why I gave my 20 minutes to Michael Porter? Obvious. You have the answer now. So I was quite privileged to spend a few hours with him a couple of years ago. And I was looking for that answer. Everybody used to say, you know, entrepreneurship is the only way to create a wealth. And obviously that needs to be done here. But I couldn't comprehend how this is true unless I met him. And then, although I used to think a lot of things that, okay, this is the way forward, that actually businesses can solve social problems. But I got my answer from other person, is obviously authority on this. And being, especially when there is a paradigm shift comes in after 20, 30 years, that's very promising. That's it, not too many lives, that's fine. So when there's a paradigm shift, let's say I'm a leftist, and after 30 years I become a rightist, there should be something about it, about that paradigm shift. And especially in that person's life who believes in it, who teaches it. So when it happened in him, as you saw that, then there's something. And I saw the proofs in the industry as well. And the proof was that how we treat, how we say that, okay, entrepreneurship changed people's lives, okay? So you want to change people's life. That's the byproduct of it. That, okay, I employed someone, and then I gave him a job, and now he's employed, so his life is changed. But the change doesn't restrict here. This is not the end of it. That's the very, I would say, like, your mind is like thinking in this tunnel that, okay, doesn't want to go out. I usually give this example that let's say I have everything. I have money, I have a good family, I have good parents, I have a house, I have a car, everything. What can you give me? How can you change my life? But somebody did change my life in the last 5 years. He changed my life in a way that the time I wake up in the morning and the time I go to sleep at night, it's all changed in my life. So who would be that person who could do that? Can you guess? I was a Windows person. And people tried to convince me on use Apple. My basic background is from infrastructure design and architecture and everything. And then I moved on to the media. And then obviously entrepreneurship. So for me was somebody coming in my life or some product coming in my life, changing everything. The way I wake up is different. The way I plan my days are different. The way I perform my religious duties are different. The way I interact with my wife is different. The way I interact with my kids even different. The way I do story time is different with them in the bed is different. Everything has been changed. It's revolutionized my life. Upside down, it's totally changed. And who was that person? Was this. Just because of one device, he changed my life. So come out of this paradigm that, okay, giving food to somebody is changing his life. You have to think on a different frequency. And that frequency is, I've given an example on why, what, and how, part of it. Why didn't you think of it? I mean, that was quite obvious that tomatoes are selling in the market for 200 rupees a kg. It was quite obvious. It happens every year. Why didn't you plan ahead for it? Why didn't you put few plants, and you don't even need a land for it. गमलों में भी आप कर सकते हैं. 5 गमले लगा दें, आपके सारे समर के लिए आपके टोमेटोज की सप्लाई हो गई आपकी. I do that. So why somebody couldn't come up with a solution or entrepreneurial idea? I'm just giving you an example. Somebody probably did. But like a shan masala, that you go in a grocery shop and here you have a tomato seeds in a packet. So everybody can actually put that in and then you have the tomato plants. Zero cost. That packet would probably cost you 20 rupees, 15, 25. Even it's better when the tomatoes are 20 rupees or 30 rupees because the tomatoes are free now. You can do 100 things with it. Nobody thought of coming up with a multivitamin cheaply. So in few years' time, when there's going to be malnutrition, because 1/3 of the society doesn't have a 2-time meal. They only eat once a day. Why didn't you come up with this solution? And this has a pure entrepreneurial cycle to it. You can run a business. So that's the mentality. Now the problem was that, okay, fine, got the solution, that entrepreneurship is the solution to solve the problem. But how you do it here? So I studied a bit. I'll give you an example. The way when I started interacting with these kids, they started sending me an email saying, what do you think, sir? This is my idea. And I started to respond them. One of them, I'll just give you an example. He's here actually, by the way, today. He sent me an email saying, I have an excellent idea. I said, okay, what is it? And he's doing some electrical engineering sort of stuff in NUST, very technical stuff. He said, we have a problem at our campus that one building is too far from another, and we can have a bicycle stands. By the way, I'm sharing this idea. Anybody wants to copy it, copy it. The people who think that their idea can be stolen, they're stupid. I call them stupid, literally. So if your idea can be copied, that's not an idea. So put that in your head, back in your head. It's not an idea if it can be copied. If somebody else does that, I do it. I shared with you a couple of ideas. Go and do it. I can tell you 20 more. Come and send me an email. I'll send you 20 more ideas. Idea is nothing for me. Person is. And I'll come to that. So he sent me an email saying, we can have a, and it's everywhere in the world. Like in London, you have a bicycle stand. In Rio, I just been to, had a bicycle stand on the beach. You just take a bicycle, park it 2 miles down the road, and it's the same cost the whole day. So he said, why shouldn't we do that? I said, okay, send me an executive summary. Just one paragraph. Don't write too much. Don't waste too much. Just send me that. And so without wasting any time, rather than giving him advice on write a business plan, financial forecast, capital you need, and all that, whatever, the whole cycle, I said to him, just one-liner, is this something you want to do that for next 5 years of your life? And the buck stopped here, right there. And that is why you need those people. I'm not flattering myself, I'm just giving you an example. There are like at least 30, 40 people sitting here. They would give you the same advice. So after a month, I received an email from him. After discussing with his parents, with his family members, brothers, sisters, this and that, probably बाप कह रहा होगा कि पढ़ा के मैंने 4 साल तुम्हें क्या किया, अब तुमने साइकिल स्टैंड खोलना है? जैसे कहते थे वो आर्किटेक्ट किसी को बनना हो तो वो आर्किटेक्ट किसी से कहा नहीं जाता था, तो क्योंकि नक्शा नवीस बन रहा है. नक्शा नवीस has very different connotation than architect in our language. Similarly, साइकिल स्टैंड खोलना है 4 साल की डिग्री करके. So think about it. Make a decision. It's not about entrepreneurship. It's about your decision, what you want to do with your life. So I gone through this and I thought, okay, how we do it? How can we, and we are having like a startup cups, and somebody actually wins the startup cup and come up with this idea, wins 40,000 rupees or whatever, like then, or somebody earns like maybe like $20,000-$30,000 up to that kind of amount of money, and then buys the car and buys the house, and that's it. So what we have achieved, these startup cups, these mentorship, these business plan competition and all that, I truly believe don't work. cannot work in Pakistani society. I don't discourage it. Go ahead, do it, compete it. But in order to have a sustainable model, I believed in it. And I thought we have to make certain adjustments to it. Silicon Valley model hasn't been replicated anywhere in the world in past 50 years successfully. They tried it everywhere. Even within the country they tried it, but it didn't work. They couldn't create another Silicon Valley. Simple as that. If we are trying to do the same thing here, would it work? It's quite obvious. Other people did. It's not. So put your foundation right, at least from the day one. And I'm glad that we are in Islamabad, because we didn't have the ecosystem. Like people talk about it like every other week. We are having something in Lahore, in Karachi. We have incubation centers and all that. So during that thought process, I thought this incubation is not going to work. Incubation, you already know, apart from the entrepreneurial stuff, incubation is a process in which you place an egg where after certain days it hatches because you provide a certain temperature. We are not ready yet for that kind of model. At least you are not ready yet. Or at least the feedback I got from you, you're not ready yet because you're still questioning where the money is going to come from. This is a 9th step, and yet we are trying to create startups. So in our model, it's called greenhouse, that incubation center. And why is it called greenhouse? The difference in a greenhouse and incubation center is in greenhouse, you take care of a plant. You see कितनी नमी है इसके नीचे, थोड़ा सा पानी और डाल दूं, ये पत्ता जो है ये जरा ब्राउन सा हो गया है, इसको काट देता हूं, इतना बढ़ गया है या नहीं बढ़ा, या इसको खाद चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए, इसको धूप मिल रही है कि नहीं मिल रही है, इसको हवा मिल रही है कि नहीं मिल रही है. You have to start from there. Then you can go for the incubation, maybe like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later on. So we made that adjustment. Now what is this greenhouse? We realized that in order to make a sizable change in this society, what is needed? Imagine there are like 25 companies in this country. Their annual revenue crosses $100 million in next 5 years. What does that mean? If they go with the same pace, they can go up to 5 billion. Imagine about 25, 30 companies doing that. And they have the potential. Believe me, you guys have the potential. I've seen it. And I'll show you an example. I'll show you an example. It just is literally it cannot be described in words. So I'm going to give you an example the way I showed you the lecture. So how we do it? That was the big question. Collaboration. And actually the next session is about collaboration. And collaboration is all over. All over. It's written all over.